What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Grant. I'm a local real estate agent in the Tampa, Florida area, and today we're going to be talking about what is actually included in the closing cost. I made a prior video talking about how much it actually costs to buy a home, but in this video we're going to be going into much further detail about what those closing costs actually are, so you can have a better understanding. And if you're trying to figure out exactly how much it's going to cost to buy a home, hopefully this will help you calculate that. All right, let's get right into it. And how I'm going to break down exactly how much all the closing costs and what they specifically are is I'm just going to pull up an Alta from one of my previous transactions, and I'll just show you the borrower section or the buyer section so you can see exactly what the buyers ended up paying, as well as what they were specifically paying for on a $295,000 home. I'll just show you the far right side so you can see exactly what we're working with, and practically you'll be able to see exactly what they paid for and how much they're specifically paying for it. So to break down the actual closing costs, what I'm going to actually do is pull up one of my old Altas from a previous transaction. And what the Alta is practically is a summary the day you close of exactly how much you are paying, how much everyone is paying, and what they're paying for. It breaks down to the T exactly what they're paying for and how much. So we're going to look at the borrower side, which would be the buyer side, and we're going to break down on a purchase price of $295,000. And in this example, they ended up putting 10% down. They put $3,000 within escrow, and there was a seller credit, which actually came from the buyer's agent in this example, to the actual buyers themselves. All right, and there was a seller's credit that actually came from the listing agent, which was myself. So let's go ahead and look at the first few things that the buyers ended up having to pay and what's included in the closing cost. So first things are going to be the prorations and adjustments, and oftentimes that's going to have to do with the specific community itself. And as you can see right here, these are the actual HOA dues quarterly, the dues for the month of March. Then we have the actual CDD cost for the actual community, and there's also a HOA transfer fee, which ended up being $100 right there. So those are all the things you're going to have to pay. So you can kind of think whatever your monthly payment is, you might have to pay a month or two in advance, and that's kind of what this is right here, as well as any transfer fees or sign-up fees that the actual HOA or community requires, which specifically is that CDD for the Water Chase community where the buyer was buying their home. So in this example, this is an HOA home, right? Not every home has an HOA. So looking at all these right here, you could potentially subtract almost all of them potentially. If your home does not have an HOA, you could potentially get rid of all of them. The next cost within the closing costs are going to be the loan charges, which specifically this buyer was working with Van Dyke Mortgage. So the actual charges that are going to specifically come from the loan officer, the mortgage, or the bank themselves, right? This is what you're actually paying for them to process your loan, right? So it includes certain things like a processing fee, which in this example is $520, as well as an underwriting fee. Your credit report, you have to run your credit. You got some pre-interest going on. So those are all things that are specifically going to be going to the lender. Different lenders have different costs, so you definitely have to check with them to see how much it will cost you. So definitely shop around, right? Obviously you want to shop for your interest rate, the best rate, best down payment, best things like that. But this is how much it ended up costing them working with Van Dyke Mortgage, which in my opinion, this is pretty average and kind of on the better side, I would say, or on the cheaper side potentially. Next is going to be your impounds, and this is practically, you can sum it up just as your home insurance that you're going to be having some prepaids for, as well as your property taxes. So in this example, the individuals had to pay 7 months at $526, equating to $3,685 in prepaid taxes, and then they ended up paying 3 months of the homeowner's insurance at $47 a month. So practically what they did is they prepaid their taxes and insurance for a few months at a time to make sure that the mortgage company had some funds withheld for your escrow. That's what that ends up going to. Next is your actual title and escrow settlement charges, and practically what that is all the fees that the actual title company is going to be charging you to do all the work for you. An example with Star Title Partners of Palm Harbor LLC, how much their settlement fee is right here, then all of their basic documentation endorsements right here, all being $50, another form being $190, then your lender's title insurance policy ending up being $350 to cover you for your title insurance. So that right there is your basic cost that the title company is going to be charging you. Again, these are certain things that can be shopped around, but this example that I'm giving you is pretty common, pretty average, and I'd say kind of on the better end to a fair price, I could say. Lastly, and this is not common for buyers to be paying their buyer's agents. It depends on where you're at, definitely. But in this case, they only ended up paying a $275 transaction fee to their buyer. You could say that's more common versus actually giving the buyer's agent like 3% or something like that. But in this example, you paid a transaction fee of $275, which is common. I could say anywhere from that to $500 would be common. And then lastly is the government recording and transfer charges, which are simply just the recording fees that the government is charging you just to practically change the deeds and trust over and things like that. Lastly, in this section here are some miscellaneous items, which are, again, very, very common. This is some more payments to your home insurance premium, right? Has it in different sections in this example, but oftentimes you're going to pay a full year's upfront of your home insurance, right? And you'll probably pay roughly 6 months worth of your taxes upfront as well. Again, here's some HOA related items which aren't common for other homes, obviously, that don't have HOAs. And then the survey, which almost every home has, and that as well is something that can be shopped around for. But again, is it worth shopping around for these few $100 items? I don't believe so, because the costs are pretty similar wherever you go. Unless you see something maybe 4 times the average of what you're seeing here in this example, then I'd say it's pretty common. But places like Florida versus New York might change drastically, specifically upon the taxes and then what value those areas actually provide, like supply and demand, things like that. So in this example, the buyers actually ended up putting 10% down. So that ended up costing them $59,000. So what we can do is look at this number right here, the $65,000 number. We go ahead and subtract that by the $59,000. That goes ahead and equals $6,271. And you got to remember though that there was a credit in the very, very beginning that was contributed to the buyer from the buyer's agent. So what that did was go ahead, you can bring that up to $8,271.4. That is how much it ended up costing in closing cost. So looking at a $295,000 home, it ended up costing them $8,271 for their closing, while they ended up putting 10% down. So that is a real live example. That's exactly everything that's paid for within the closing based on an Alta. But this is everything you would expect to pay on a $295,000 home. So it's pretty realistic. $65,000 for $295,000 home. That's with putting 10% down.
Sorry, I meant to say 20% down that whole time. So, if you did the math.
So it ended up costing on a $295,000 home, costing them $59,000 within a down payment, then a little bit more than $8,000 towards their closing costs, not including the buyer's agent credit that was given to them. So I hope that helped, guys. I hope that was a better understanding of what you're actually paying for in your closing costs and potentially what you would expect to pay. So I hope you got some value in the video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe for more content just like this, and I will see you in the next video.